So let's see. Yesterday, I sat down with the leaders of two organizations who are working together to drive economic mobility and promote racial equity in Metro Detroit. We have Matt Elliot here, president of Bank of America, Michigan, and Jason Lee, president and CEO of Junior Achievement of Southeastern Michigan. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having us.
It's really good to see you at the Mackinac Policy Conference. Matt, economic mobility and racial equality have to go hand in hand as we think about the future of Metro Detroit. How are you thinking about this, and how is your work aligned with those goals right now?
We have four pillars that really align towards this. One is health. Health is wealth in a lot of ways. The second is support for small business. The third is support for job training and upskilling, which is what we are really partnering with JA on. And the fourth is affordable housing. We figure that those are four areas that we as a bank can influence to help drive economic mobility and racial equality in the city of Detroit.
And my understanding is $6 million recently has gone to some of these efforts. Tell me a little bit more.
Yeah, $6 million across that those four pillars, really targeted towards organizations like Jason's that are really focused on delivering high quality services to the community that we all love so much.
Yeah. So, Jason, I have been just digging in about all the work that you're doing. Can you tell me a little bit about particularly the financial literacy that you're working on and why you think it's so important for folks in Detroit, for students in Detroit?
Yeah, well, actually, for students in Michigan. So Junior Achievement has been in Michigan for 75 years this year and 105 years globally. So as a nonprofit, financial literacy is one of the key pillars of our work. But it's so important. It's a life skill. We call it Adulting 101 and providing young people those skill sets in financial management that are critical. I think we found during the pandemic that those who had those skill sets fared a lot better than those who did not.
What do we know about the students who haven't gotten these kind of skills? Like, what are the outcomes? What does the future portend if you don't have just basic financial literacy?
Well, it helps in terms of money management is a key component of actually overall wellness of an individual, right? So if you're stressed about money, how does that impact your health? Is a key area that we look into. So when we think about financial literacy, it started out as kind of a byproduct of our work in entrepreneurship. We realized in order for a young person to be a good entrepreneur, they have to be able to manage their money. And so we created a suite of programs around that. We're really excited as Michigan has created a new high school graduation requirement around financial literacy, and the Junior Achievements program correlates directly to the state requirement that's identified by the Department of Education.
My understanding is 20,000 students have done some of this work.
Absolutely. So this year, actually closer to 27,000 students.
Well, who's counting?
We definitely do count.
Because of the financial literacy.
We do. And just having great partners like Bank of America who have came in, they actually have a physical presence in our building, in addition to providing tremendous volunteers to help us do the work. We can't do this work alone. It takes great partnerships to make this happen.
And one of the things about outcomes that it's important is that through the work of financial literacy that JA does, and frankly that we do, at the JA Finance Park, the students actually get a chance to see what it's like to walk into a financial center, which may not seem like much, but if you don't feel comfortable walking in there, you might not walk into a financial center when it comes time for you to open that banking account. And then where are you? It's really important for all students to be in the banking system, and that gives them some familiarity. That's one of the things we're trying to accomplish with the investment that we've made there.
So I'm curious, as we've all kind of getting out of COVID, right? You talked a little bit about some of this generation. What basic skills do you think you're seeing just sort of lacking right now as students have been online? Again, the past couple of years getting back out there, but there was just this sort of gap in so much growth.
Yeah, we see a lot of soft skills deficits for a lot of young people. We have a lot of companies that come to us and say, the young people can't talk to a customer, or they lack some of those cues and things of that nature. So we do spend a lot of time working on soft skills, situational analysis, and also just mock interviews, right? So, if they want to go work at a Bank of America, there's a process that Matt and his team take people through, and we kind of just help in terms of giving young people those cues and practice and opportunities.
The other thing too, Zoe, is that through our Better Money Habits curriculum, students are able to learn some basic skills around what banking products are, but banking concepts are even more important, and it goes to the soft skills concept that Jason was talking about. Best example is understanding the time value of money. You know, so many of our youth, I've got 2 Gen Zs myself, you know, it's you understand what's in front of you now, but you don't understand decisions you make today have really big impacts 5, 10, 20 years in the future. And being able to demonstrate that and make that real, all of a sudden changes behavior and changes trajectory.
There's a lot of folks at this conference who may not interact with Gen Z as much as you are at home or at work. I'm curious what you're hearing from this cohort who is making their voices heard in a way that we haven't seen in a while, particularly in this election year. Jason, I'd love to hear from you first.
Yeah.
What are you hearing?
So we're actually in the process of making some renovations to our building, and they're very vocal. I think that's something that's a key characteristic of that generation. They said that they wanted gender-neutral bathrooms, as an example. There was opportunity for having a break room. We had used it as a storage room, right? So just having those components of the work environment is something, and just being vocal to say that this is something that we really want. I definitely think that the generation has a lot of promise, and we're seeing a lot more companies in terms of hiring, because that is the future, right? So making sure that they're prepared to succeed in this global economy and also understand the implications and opportunities that are available.
Here's one of the things that's really interesting about Gen Z from my point of view. These are children that came of age in the financial crisis. And so you see it in the data that labor force participation is at a much higher rate than it was in the prior generation for that cohort. You know, you see that generation being a little more focused on stability and maybe a more balance of risk taking, which I think ultimately will benefit the economy and will benefit that cohort.
Well, I've got to nerd out now and talk a little bit about economics and policy, and I'm going to pull you into this conversation,
You're in the right place.
Matt. I know.
Yeah.
I feel comfortable doing this. The Chamber, of course, put out a poll on Tuesday that really showed what seemed like this disconnect between how people are feeling about the economy as a whole, which they seem pessimistic about, but then asked about their personal stability and financial stability, and they seem okay about.
Yeah.
Where is this disconnect coming from?
I think it requires more study, but in general terms, it's more than likely this disconnect between your lived experience and what you're choosing to believe based on the information you're choosing to consume. And very often, we all tend to, if we want to, be in an information bubble and that reinforces the same message over and over again. So if you tend to, consume information that is, not telling you the entire story, you're only going to get part of the story. And I think that's part of what's going on here. And that's one of the values and the valuable things about this conference is that we all get a chance to get together, get in a room in usually a fairly informal setting, and have real conversations from different points of view. Jason and I, to see each other, would have to go to great lengths in many months to set up a meeting,
Sure.
which happened earlier this year, right? But, we've already talked 3 times today. And that's just one small example of the value of groups and conferences like this that bring together so many disparate voices that are frankly focused on one thing, which is helping Michigan succeed.
So, Jason, I'm curious as we talk about this sort of misperception, I guess, about the economy and also financial literacy. Do you ever think about how to make sure that Gen Z is not, again, just financially literate and figuring out how to kind of keep a sense of their own affairs, but to understand sort of how our economy works so that they are knowledgeable and so that there isn't this pessimism if really maybe there shouldn't be?
Yeah. So one of the programs that JA does provide is actually a program around economics and understanding the micro and macro there. So there's tremendous opportunities for that to occur. The interesting thing is that our schools, because of how our schools are structured here in Michigan, every school system is going to approach this differently in terms of solving the, what is required for graduation. So, we are here to say that junior achievement can be a consistent voice when it comes to financial literacy and also when it comes to economic principles as well as entrepreneurship and career pathways.
And understanding the art of the possible. You can't be what you can't see. And through JA, you can sort of see what it's like, to be a professional, to be an engineer. maybe even be a banker, right? But that expands the possibility of the horizon of a student, and I think it really gives them something to shoot for that's more productive and also more tangible.
Matt, Jason, thanks so much for your time and your efforts.
All right, thank you very much.